Good morning, guys. This is a slightly different presentation style or manner of content that I'm going to put out on my channel. We're going to call this, at least for now, Ravens Offseason Vision Board, maybe Volume 1. I'm very fortunate to be joined by two people this evening whose opinions I respect, number one, and I think will bring some perspectives to you guys on the Ravens free agency options and draft options, as well as the schemes that we've brought in with Minter, Weaver, and Declan Doyle. And so I'd like to introduce those guys and thank them personally for joining in. Femi Ayambadejo, forgive me if I mispronounced your last name.
No.
Thank you. You're a Super Bowl champion for the Ravens, and a lot of people that may not know, a two-sport athlete in college, right?
I was, yep, football and baseball.
I just want to thank you for coming on, and we've been in some contact lately about creating some content, and so this is our first attempt in doing so. So how interesting has the offseason been for you as a former player and a former Ravens player too? And your brother was a Raven as well.
That's true. Yeah, we're a trivia question. We're the only brothers in Ravens history to both have rings with the Ravens. So we're honored by that, first of all. But I think it's been a good offseason. I think that a lot of people asked me if I was happy about Coach Minter being hired, and I said I don't need to be happy. It's too early for that. I just need to be reassured. And I think it was a reassuring hire. He checks a lot of boxes. His intelligence, the way that he puts schemes together, the disguise factor, the multiplicity. I love the match zone principles that he does. I think that was a big problem for us. And I think a lot of my former teammates, we all sat in on that introductory, that day in January where he got introduced, at the Under Armour Performance Center. And a lot of us were impressed. And one of the things that I always tell people is don't compare him to Coach Harbaugh. He's not Coach Harbaugh. He hasn't won one game yet. But confidence and intelligence come in a lot of different shapes and forms. So we were all happy, and I think that my analysis of his introductory presser was consensus thumbs up by all the former players that were in the room. There was a vibe and an energy. So yeah, good stuff.
And you guys aren't going out there on social media and declaring things like a lot of people like me do, and social media analysts do. So that's more important. Well, thank you again, Jake Hallett, someone who, first of all, in our Discord, I have to thank you because you're often a stabilizing influence on. There's like 112 people in there, and you've been oftentimes like a voice of reason, even when people like myself have been a little bit inflammatory or fired up.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. Thank you for that. It's an exciting offseason, man. I mean, entire new staff. I love the draft season. DeCosta's got his offseason Super Bowl coming up with the scouting combine here in a couple of weeks. So, I mean, it's already been eventful, and it's only going to get better. So, looking forward to diving into it with you guys.
And I always say there's about three of you guys in the Ravens Discord, Jake, that are draft gurus, and so I don't know if it comes from your background working, you mentioned University of Maryland staffer, or what you do professionally, but you guys are always prepared in a way that has actually, to be honest with you, in the last couple of years, elevated what I try to do for the draft, and got some lofty goals this year for it. So. We're going to talk about the draft here, to be honest with you, but I really kind of wanted to get into, I guess what you'd call what your vision board would be for how things work out this offseason. And I want to preface it a little bit that this is contingent upon, for me, there being a restructuring of Lamar Jackson's contract, or just a complete new one. And then Linderbaum being re-signed. I know he's a UFA, right?
Yep.
And then some good news on Matabike as well. So perhaps this is too rosy or too much of an optimistic outlook for people who, I guess 3 months ago we were all, including myself, incredibly negative, right? Are you guys comfortable moving forward with those type of assumptions?
Yeah, definitely. I think we're spot on. Yeah, I think we're spot on. And by the way, I'm an eternal optimist. I'm a former athlete. Like, the game's not over till I'm dead. So that's where I come from, Coach. So be ready for that.
I love it.
It's been a fun and exciting off season so far. So let's keep it that way.
I'm an optimist to be, and some of the guys in the Discord would absolutely not believe this. I'm an optimist with one exception, and that's preparation. So when it comes to preparation or looking at what someone else can do on the other side of the field, I become, I don't want to say negative, but I heighten their own capabilities to the point where I assume that we're going to be confronted with the best version of them, because so for some people that comes across as very negative, and I like to say, no, it's not negative, it's fear. It's fear of not being prepared for the moment. So it's sometimes difficult for me late in seasons if we're struggling with certain things, because I do get overly negative, and I know I did this year about the offensive line, but it's something that bothered me for the longest time. So when we talk about this off-season planning, which one of you guys wants to take this first? That because I've banged this drum too much, that we have to look at the offensive line and totally revamp or rebuild what we have there from a talent perspective and a coaching perspective. Ledford, I think, is going to handle the coaching part.
Yeah, let me dive into that for a moment, if you don't mind, Jake. I definitely feel like I'm happy with Rosengarten. I really don't want to mess with him, and I think Ronnie still has a couple good years left in him. And Linderbaum, other than Lamar, he's my top priority. You know what I mean? Can you imagine kind of deciding you're going to replace 3 or 4 offensive linemen? Like, that to me is just screaming for a lack of continuity and problems in the first quarter of the season. And you're implementing a new offense with new principles and new concepts, and you get to see how these issues compound when you introduce a bunch of new stuff. Now, truth be told, we've seen teams, we saw Washington go to the NFC Championship game with a whole new staff a year ago, right? I guess it was 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
But we've seen teams turn things around really quickly. Look at the Bears, right? Every year we see a team, look at New England, look at what they've done, right? So it's not impossible to come in and kind of reset everything, but I don't think the Ravens need to do a hard reset. They need to shuffle some things around. They have some of the most talented position groups in the NFL. And so for me, Linderbaum and Lamar are my 2 top free agents, or current free agent signings that need to be kept, right? Actually, Lamar's not going to be a free agent. He's just looking to get a whole new deal, right? Exactly, yeah. So, but Linderbaum, if he hits free agency, he's gone. Like, people are going to overpay him for sure. So, I have a contract that I think is very, it's not a discount, but I think if you let him hit the market, it's going to be a discount. I think 4 years, $80 million would be outstanding for a guy like Linderbaum, for us to keep him and not have to deal with that headache. We're talking about the difference between winning a Super Bowl and, being a playoff team, in my opinion. If that couple $1 million, like when people make these things, make these thoughts about, I don't want to spend money on that guy, and we're talking $2 million. Like, you want to win a championship or not? Like, that literally, it comes down to a position group, 5 or 6 plays, and you want this guy or the unknown guy. For me, I'm going to take the guy that's a top 5 center in the NFL. I know he was a little bit down last year, but I think some of that had to do with the loss of Coach D. Obviously, I've had some issues and concerns about the regression with the O-line and how it was coached. Look, I don't know Coach Warhop. I mean, no disrespect. I'm just looking at what I see on film. And so from that perspective, and PFF isn't the end-all be-all, but it's a metric that's treats all players the same. And so if you look at what Tyler's done, since he's come into the league, he's been a top 5 center. I think he's been a 3-time Pro Bowler, so got to keep him. So my thoughts on the O-line kind of go there. And then obviously I'd love to either sign or draft. If we draft the number 1 at 14, an offensive lineman, we still bring in another guy to compete with Emory Jones. I'm a big Emory Jones fan. I think Emory Jones is going to be a starter in this league sooner than later. So in a perfect world, do we sign, there's a couple of guys that I mentioned, Coach, and, I don't have to go down a rabbit hole on who those guys are right now. But a guy like Zeitler, come on home, baby. Like, hey, let's go. Come on back. We got you. But the O-line for me is tethered to protecting Lamar Jackson. That's the number 1 thing on my vision board. What's the number 1 goal of this offseason? Get Lamar a new deal and then protect him. Yeah. Like, those things go hand in hand. So I'll pause there, Jake. And, I could talk for an hour straight, brother.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're spot on. And I agree with everything you just said, too. Obviously, the number 1 thing is getting the Lamar deal done. That's got to be first and foremost. Get that done as soon as possible. Then it shifts to Linderbaum. You just focus on Linderbaum getting that done because, like you said, if he hits the open market, who knows? And I think Jeff's Rebeck's mentioned it a couple times. There's some numbers out there with him and Likely being floated that are we're going to look at it and go, wow, like that's insane. So, but it's similar to what happened with Ronnie Stanley last year. You know, you started hearing all the my conspiracy theories.
Yeah, Kansas City was going to come get him. Remember Kansas City? Yeah, remember that? Yeah,
it's like Kansas City, Washington, and you know, that within 24 hours, Ravens signed him. So who knows? We might be seeing that soon. But regardless, those are the top two priorities by far. Keeping a key part of the offensive line, which, you know, obviously needs upgrades, but losing him would obviously be a complete downgrade. You're not finding someone better out there than Linderbaum, especially not in this draft class either. So keeping him, and then of course, what happens with Matabike? And we're obviously going with the mindset that he is going to be okay, just for our planning purposes. But if not, that's a tough number to swallow. Because from what I understand, if he were to retire, I don't think he'll do it until next year because he's got like a $25 million total guaranteed part of his deal that he's still got for this year. So that's just a lot of cap space being eaten up by a guy that's not going to play. So that's a big issue as well. So those are the three big giants in terms of, you know, how this offseason is going to line out. If history repeats itself, I don't think they're going to make a big swing either at edge or signing a big name because that's just not how they've operated in the past. However, I could see them making a pretty significant trade, whether that's bringing in a receiver, you know, all the rumors about AJ Brown going on around online. That's a good fit, I think, with Lamar. You know, bring in another pass rusher on the other side, pair with Mike Green. So we'll see if they're able to do that. But I think right now it's Lamar, Linderbaum. Bring in some guys, whether it's quality depth, because as we saw this year, when guys go down, you can't be having, you know, God love him, but Keon Martin and all these guys coming in important moments. So bringing in quality depth and then just prioritizing the draft, making sure you're landing quality guys that are going to be able to not only hopefully contribute early, but fit in the system and grow and by the end of the year contribute. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got.
Hey, Jake, let me ask you one thing. Like and this goes for you too, Coach. Look, I love him, but I think Likely's gone. Can we just all agree on that? Can we all just make that part of our assumption, right? He's gone, right?
Command a big contract, I think. So
I think so too. And I'm happy with Charlie Kolar. Like I think Charlie's outstanding. You know, he's the 10th rated tight end in PFF. Like I said, I know it's not the end all be all, but it's consistent across the board. Mm-hmm. And we can keep him for cheap, right? And so and Derek, you know, like I get jumpy, man. I get jumpy. I want to start going down the rabbit hole on these other things about who we're going to keep and we're not going to keep. But I'll let you. You're driving right now, so you let me know where you want me to go with my thoughts on who we should keep, not keep, etc. All that stuff.
No, you know what both of you guys kind of brought up, and what just because of my own knowledge, the time that I've spent covering the Lions, and then the whole Ben Johnson leaving for Chicago. You know, and I did mention this in other videos, so forgive me if this is, you know, repetitive information for people. But as Ravens fans, you may not be aware of this. You guys, I know, are. I know Jake is from the Ravens Discord because I've, you know, provided this information multiple times in there. Declan Doyle was hired by Ben Johnson a week after Ben Johnson took the job in Chicago. And March, I think 12th and 13th, a year ago, 11 months ago, I guess, they totally revamped their offensive line in Chicago. And now salary was related to it. They had to take Joe Thuney's salary, or Joe Thuney, however you say it. But you know what they traded to get 2 Pro Bowl caliber guys? A 4th round draft pick and a 6th round draft pick. They traded a 6th round pick for Jonah Jackson. Now, Jonah Jackson, a year ago, this time, probably could have been had by us for a 6th round pick. no one was lining up to trade for Jonah Jackson, who got 7 All-Pro votes, by the way, which means, I'm sure he got one from Chicago, right? From a Chicago writer, no doubt. 6 other Pro Bowl voters, All-Pro voters voted for Jonah Jackson, either first or second team. That's legitimate. That's more than, the whole Packers thing where some Packers writers voting for every Green Bay guy. We could have done that a year ago. Declan Doyle was there for that. And so I think it's important to mention, Femi and Jake and anyone else who talks about the offensive line. We have in the building now someone who was there for an O-line rebuild 11 months ago, saw the output from that investment. Now, do we have the same salary structure that the Bears did or salary cap freedom a year ago? Maybe not, but that's related to the Lamar thing and the Madubuike issue, which is kind of why I prefaced it. I think, we may need to have that severe an approach with trying to that intentional an approach with trying to improve this offensive line. Trade for one, draft one, maybe even develop one. I agree with you about Emory Jones. I think he can be moved in there at one of those guard spots, and he can give us everything we need. He's probably going to be better than even guys like us think.
I totally agree with you. And Coach, just to preface one other thing, and not to say that you're this part missed you, but the thing that I think is just a slight, if I just give a slight, and you correct me if I'm wrong on the dates, and Jake, I could be wrong on the dates on this too. The Bears are in their second year with Ben Johnson, correct? And Declan Doyle was there for both those years, correct?
This will be year 2 for Ben Johnson, 26. Yeah.
Oh, so last year was his first year. Ben Johnson's last. Okay. See, I thought Ben was there for 2 years, and I thought Declan was under Ben. So it's only been 1 year with this whole staff and system. Okay, that actually gives me more confidence to actually support your point. Okay, excellent. Sorry, carry on. Yep, agreed. Cool.
51 days. Ben Johnson had been there 51 days when they traded for Joe Thuney, traded for Jonah Jackson, and then the next day signed Drew Dahlman, the free. I don't know that we're probably not gonna make a free agent splash at O-line.
Yeah.
To me, I'm glad we got Jesse Minter. I'm really happy we got Anthony Weaver. I mean, that one was like, wow. At the end of this whole process, he's still available.
Yeah.
Kind of shocking, but I'm super glad that we have someone in the building who's going to call the offensive plays that 11 months ago was there for an O-line rebuild in Chicago. No one was predicting that type of turnaround in Chicago. And, so that's maybe it's wishful thinking on my part.
No, I don't think it is. I think that's a good comp. And I think that's, there's always good stories that happen when you have good players and good coaches that buy into a good system. I mean, I think that's and let's be honest, the Ravens have more integral continuity than the Bears do. So, you know what I mean? So if they can do that, there's no reason that we couldn't do it. And remember, let's, just go down memory lane for a moment. We basically revamped an offense in 1 week when Lamar took over when Joe got hurt, in 2018. And look what happened. Obviously, it didn't end well with the Chargers, but it revolutionized a few things in 2019, right? And that was, that was a big philosophical. Yeah. So I think you're right. And you're being optimistic right now. Look at you. And I love it. I'm here for it. So I totally
not used to that.
Yeah, no. So I agree with you. Yeah, but I think the play, like being a former Raven and being there to watch the Play Like a Raven moniker, like it started. Like people don't know this. It started in 1999 with Coach Billick. Like we started out 2-6 in that season, and we finished 6-2. And the next year we won the Super Bowl. Like all the things that we've been doing since then started in 1999. I was there for it. You know what I mean? So the expectation and the ideas, it tethers exactly and tracks exactly with why Anthony Weaver is such an important person to have in the building, because he played as a Raven, right? He gives you kind of the Zach Orr experience to some degree. And I know that didn't go well, but that wasn't all Zach's fault. And look, I'm not going to sit here and analyze, coverages and technique and philosophy on where the corners play on upfield. Like, look, there's some things I don't agree with. It just wasn't good. And a pass rush and having no pass rush, hey, nobody's going to be good when you don't have a pass rush, right? So when you lose your best player on defense, Madubuike, it makes it difficult on everybody. And yes, there was other things that were problematic. But I think the point that I'm trying to make tethers to your point, whether it's O-line, whether it's the secondary, whether it's guys at the middle level, if we have to make drastic changes because the guys that were hired decide we need to do that, it's not September yet. I don't have an opinion on that. I'm going to trust them to do their job. I'm not going to be in the DMs and and in the chat talking shit because I'm pissed off about something that I'm going to comment on something I know nothing about. Like, let's be honest. A lot of people don't know anything about some of this stuff. Like, let's just see what happens when the season starts. You know what I mean? So amen to that, dude. Sorry, Jake. I'm on my soapbox already, brother.
All good. No, that's all good. Coach, I do want to say you brought up an interesting point with how the Bears rebuilt their offensive line, because I think that's a much more realistic path for the Ravens to add to the offensive line. And honestly, it could be defensive line too. But I just pulled up here just some potential NFL cuts, prior to free agency. Mekhi Becton, 27, he's making what, 12 and change in LA with the Chargers. He's definitely not a fit with Mike McDaniel out there now, I don't think. But to your point, like, how much would that cost to call over to Joe Ortiz and say, hey, instead of releasing him, we'll send you over one of our conditional
pick, right?
Yeah, 5th round picks or whatever, because God knows we need those. But just that route is definitely an interesting option. Bringing in a veteran guy, probably less expensive than signing someone off the street or in free agency rather. So yeah, I thought that was a really interesting note that you had there on that.
I think it just kind of underscores to me, like, Ben Johnson knew Jonah Jackson because Jonah Jackson had played in Detroit for him for 3 years. And so you had this connection. And so Doyle just coached in Chicago for 1 year. Prior to that, he was in Denver with Sean Payton for 3 years. And then, Weaver went to Miami, of course, for 2 seasons. I guess what I'm getting at is I wonder if we were a little bit too insular with our approach to offensive line last offseason. It's, water under the bridge at this point, but, I think we should have been way more serious about that position. And I think this offseason, if we want to be, well, not 1 year ahead, still, I guess, 1 year behind, it's got to be outside linebacker, edge rusher, whatever. There has to be some type of improvement. I'm a big Draymond Jones fan. I know that other people may not be.
I am.
I don't know how or if there's a path for him to return. I wish there was.
I mean, he's going to get some money, probably like 3 years, $30 million. I think, and you could probably get his cap hit down around 9, 8. You know what I mean? I think it's definitely doable. And Coach, if I bounce around, and Jake, if I bounce around, because I think some of these things are attached together. So the way that I've organized them is in blocks together. So,
Oh, you have a great the whole thing you put together. If we do it, let's in another show. Like, I'd like for you to show it. I love the whole off-season plan that you had sent me, and it really, to be honest with you, was what helped me label this like vision board. So, I love
Jake. It. Yeah, Jake. I'm an entrepreneur. I work in business, strategic planning, business development. So I love to kind of SWOT analyze everything, right? Yeah. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Like I applied that prism over everything, and it works. Like, it works for the NFL. So, one of the things that I was looking at, if we're looking at the free agency part, like, I really want to focus on the guys that we have. Like you mentioned, Draymond Green, right? Draymond Jones. I'm from Northern California, and I'm a Warriors fan. So when I hear Draymond, I think of Draymond Green every time. So my apologies, y'all. But I love Draymond Jones. So for me, it's keeping Lamar, it's keeping Snoop Huntley, it's keeping Linderbaum. Absolutely. It's Draymond Jones. It's Chidobe Awuzie. It's Charlie Kohler, and it's Jordan Stout. The rest of the guys, there's some guys I like that we might not be able to keep. But if you ask me, like, hey, who are the guys you're going to prioritize? They're on this team right now. Those are the guys that I'm keeping. And how do we pay some of these guys? And then how do we, sign a couple people? So for me, Lamar restructure creates somewhere between 30 and 35 million under the cap. I think Humphrey needs to take a pay cut, similar to like what Ronnie did. So I'm going to ask him to do that. That's one of my inputs in this thesis. You're going to release Hill, and you're going to release Broderick Washington. That gives you about 70 million in cap space. Like, that's a good amount of money to do some work. And then obviously you got to pay.
Situation than what we different situation. Yeah, with all of that, as far as the freedom of movement, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. And nothing here is crazy. Like, I'm not doing anything crazy here. I'm not robbing Peter to pay Paul. I'm not putting a bunch of stuff into the future. And guess what? I did an exercise where I freed up 90 million. I got rid of Roquan or restructured him. I did a whole bunch of stuff. Like, and I'm not saying they're going to do that, right? That's a different universe. We don't live in that universe necessarily. Oh, well, we might. We don't know what's going to happen. But
Yeah.
The inputs that we're using for the sake of this discussion, I already mentioned what those were.
Have you
But
seen those?
that's
Have you seen those complete off-season planners? The websites, they're really cool.
There's a new one that just came out. I forget the name, but it's really cool. You can restructure trade. Yeah, I'll send you guys a link afterwards.
Yeah, send it to me, please. Yeah, I'm over here doing it the hard way.
Yeah, you're like me. We're old. We do stuff manually.
No. Hold up. Now I am using a large language model. A couple of them actually. You know what I mean? So
good old pen and paper right here from me.
Is that what you're doing? Yeah. No, I love, like I said, I use these all the time, and I actually build a couple more for the health side. Like the health and longevity stuff is really like my bread and butter, my passion. But a lot of those tools, they work for almost anything, right? They're pretty agnostic. So I love coming up with different scenarios and different inputs and use cases to kind of stretch things out. And I already know, guys, like if we did a show just on that, as you had mentioned, Derek, kind of like in our strategy session, I think it'd be killer. So yeah.
So I mean, for me, I think the thing about Draymond that from day one when we did acquire him, I remembered him from the Seahawks. I had watched him in Seattle. He was there in 2024. And then he looked a little sleeker to me, slightly slimmed down, but definitely super aggressive. And I just enjoyed that he played across the line of scrimmage but still under control, super aggressive, but he read his keys, and all of his reactions were just so distinct and abrupt. And I just remember thinking, like, how did we get this guy? And I just, is he a 10, 12, 14 sack per guy? Not in our defense last year, no. But I didn't plan on talking about this, but this is something that I wonder about the MINTER defense, and that's the Mike McDonald boost for edge rushers. And so it's a real thing. Now, granted, Seattle this year, they only, their leading sack guy for 2025 was 7 sacks, but it was 3 guys. It was Leonard Williams, who for me, all-pro guy every year.
He's a stud.
I don't understand why he doesn't get the recognition he gets. Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, the other D tackle, and Uchenna Nwosu, who I was so glad to see return to health and be able to make his money. 7 sacks each. And that model for me, in that model for us, if Madubuike is back, Madubuike is Leonard Williams or Byron Murphy. Draymond Jones is Uchenna Nwosu. Mike Green could be the other guy. I don't think we need let me rephrase that. To succeed, we don't have to have a 12, 14 sack per year guy, but we would love to have one. Yeah. We'd love to find one at 14. I just don't know if they're going to be there.
I think Kyle Van Noy on a show or a podcast talked about the loss of Madubuike and how significant it was. And he went into detail about, the things that fans don't necessarily see often. We see it because we watch the game like coaches, but his effectiveness on stunts and how, locked in on him the offense is, and just, creating ways to get pressure on the quarterback. He was such a crucial part of that. And when he went away, that all went away, basically. They were asking Travis Jones to do and granted, he played extremely
well, but he's not Madubuike though, right? We know that.
He's Robin to Batman for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just think that, in order, you got to have, quality players, but also to your point, with the Minter and McDonald, we talked about it too. We didn't really see much of the scheming up pressures. It was a lot of just like one-on-one engage and don't really do anything. Whereas Owe gets traded over to San Diego, they bump him out to more of a 7 tech, and guess what? He gets to use his speed.
Exactly. Get around the corner. Yep.
Yeah. So I that's a simple way to look at how am I excited about Minter? Well, Owe went over there and he succeeded really well. So just lots of different things. But go ahead. Feel free to hop in at any point.
No, I was going to say, to kind of build on both your points. Imagine this, right? Remember in 2024? I think it was 2024, or no, it was 2023 when we led the league in points scored, sacks, and turnovers.
Yep.
Yep. That was that year. And I think it was Adafe Owe, Michael Pierce, Nnamdi Madubuike, Travis Jones played some, I think, but like, think about that group, right? I'm not going to get it perfect, but I didn't mean to go back to 2023, but I wanted to make a point about how successful that Mike McDonald defense was. People kind of forget how good they were. And then things kind of got, 24 started out rough. We got a little bit better, but as the season went on, but 2025, you lose Travis. It was kind of a shit show. We had our moments against not such good or high powered offenses, but we knew that there was cracks in the foundation, right?
Yep.
What can excite me is that if you get the Minter effect, and you have Mike Jones, you have Madubuike, you have Travis Jones, and you have Draymond Jones, and then you draft a stud if there's a stud available, or you bring in another free agent. Maybe there's somebody out there that we're not thinking of, and I have a list of guys here that I had been thinking about. I don't know if they're
one of them. I really like your edge rusher group.
My edge rushers, Kuntz, Floyd, Mafe, Chiasson and Muhammad. Those are the guys that I thought you might be able to pay. Who's your favorite out of that group?
I mean, I'm a huge Boye Mafe fan. The reality is
he did
not perform to the level that some of the other guys did in Seattle. But I still am a big fan of his. I mean, I think I did his rookie year. Look, you're talking about a guy who, like, I'll never forget, it was like a 3-play sequence his rookie year. Someone runs like a power concept at him, and he wrong arms it or spills it, and he destroys the H-back, right? It's like a second down. It's a tackle for loss. The next play is a pass play. It's like a 3rd and 7, and he gets the sack. They take the punt back to the house. By the way, he was on punt return, all right? They kick off. So he's literally he's not on extra point. He's on the field on the 2nd down, a tackle for loss on the run. 3rd down, a sack. He's on punt return that day. They return it, take it back to the house, kick the extra point. He's on the kickoff team. He makes the tackle on the kickoff team. And I'm like, he's a 6'4", 265-pound edge rush guy, super athletic. I would love to see someone like him come to Baltimore on I think what you had was like a pretty affordable contract, right?
Yeah, I did. I had it, somewhere between like $11 and $12 million a year, somewhere around there.
And get the Minter effect. Now, he didn't get it. He didn't get it with Mike McDonald this past year. But look, DeMarcus Lawrence played incredible football for them. Uchenna Nwosu returned, played incredible football, and so they kind of took some of those reps from him. If we could produce it in the aggregate, meaning have 6 guys who all have between 5 and 8 sacks, I feel like I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Mm-hmm.
I do want to eventually move to talking about the draft a little bit, but I did want to mention something you brought up, Femi, and that's in my perfect offseason for the Ravens, we find a way to bring back Awuzie, one of my favorite signings from last year. Felt really good to see him be healthy and play well. Unfortunately, he gave up the one big score, I think, against Pittsburgh, which was shocking.
Yeah, he tripped. Yeah, he tripped, right? So, yeah, it sucks.
Yeah. But I think he is something that will be a plus. If we were able to bring him back before the draft. But I just feel like, tell me if I'm wrong, guys. I feel like his film from 2025. There's going to be an NFL front office that looks at that film and says, "We're willing to spend a little bit for him because you got a quality guy who you can just plug in, even in the midst of our chaos defensively in 2025." To me, all those graphs that people put out now for football. He's in for 2025 for us. He's in the top right corner as far as how he played. I thought so.
No, I agree.
I think it's similar to Likely in a sense. If you're a team, all of my friends are Washington fans. Why, I have no idea, but they are. I know, right? We talk about it all the time. They're a team that could use a corner. Or 3 or 5, depending on who you ask. And they have a bunch of money. What's stopping them from saying, hey, here's 2-3 years, if he's not the level he was at, last year and year 2, you can eat some of that money and not feel bad about it. So that's what I worry about with him. You're going to have to
I hope he gets paid
a little bit more. Yeah, he definitely will.
Paid.
Like you said, his film he deserves a a significant increase in pay. But he's a guy that if in an ideal world, you get Lamar done quickly, and then before free agency opens up, you start knocking off those guys quick, because once that free agency door opens, who knows what big offers coming in for him.
He's 21, 22 before his ACL. Of course, it was with the Bengals, and Ravens fans did not like me doing Bengals videos, but I did in the offseason. I didn't have anything else to do. What the heck else was I going to talk about? Wake Martindale and another Cover Zero blitz. So Awuzie was badass, 21, 22. And so it was great to see him healthy, and I hope he does get paid. Perfect world, he comes back here for something that's, got an extra year attached maybe, or a bigger bonus. I'm not an expert on how those things work, but I think it was you, Femi, that mentioned him. One of the guys from this year's film that I was like, okay, in the middle of all the ridiculousness that we've got on defense, for that level at least, he was a stabilizing influence.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Consistent. Yeah, very consistent.
Hey, Coach. One thing before I know we can talk. So I know, and it's going by fast. So one thing I just want to mention about the offense is we're kind of talking about the defense a little bit right here. One of the things I want to see is the evolution of Keaton Mitchell. And what I mean by that is I want to see him doing stuff that Bijan Robinson does from the slot, or motioning out from the running back position and running option, angle, fake angle routes, one-on-one option routes on linebackers and safeties, the same stuff Jahmyr Gibbs does. He has the talent to do that, but I don't feel like either they haven't taken him as a route runner seriously, or he hasn't taken the opportunity to develop his route running seriously. But that's a game changer, and we're going to get rid of Justice Hill in my version of this season. And I like Justice Hill,
same here.
But I feel like I want to deploy that money somewhere else this go round. He'll get a job. He'll be fine. But he wasn't really available this year. And look, there was a downhill effect with everybody on offense. It kind of started with the offensive line and Lamar, and he got hurt his neck, didn't finish the season. And look, I understand. I've been hurt before. I totally get it. But if I'm running the front office, we have a guy in Keaton Mitchell who is legitimately top 2 or 3 fastest running backs in the NFL. Him and Derrick Henry led the NFL in over 20 mile per hour carries this season. Both of them. You know what I mean? It's insane. And so you have this 1-2 punch, and we're going to draft a kid for sure. But Keaton Mitchell is untapped. He has untapped superpowers as a running back. And I ran all the routes, and I was a third down back. I'm a lot bigger than he was, and clearly not as explosive or as fast. But I knew how to get open. I knew how to read coverages. I knew how to drop my hips. And a lot of running backs.
How many guys in NFL history have rushing and receiving touchdowns? You do.
I mean, yeah. Hey, I haven't looked, but yeah, I think I've actually had one of each in the same game twice. You know what I mean? So I mean, yeah.
I agree with you. I think you guys can tell me if there's a better word. I think Keaton Mitchell got pigeonholed. He got pigeonholed into this one role. And what I know about a Ben Johnson offense, Declan Doyle, I think whatever the Venn diagram looks like, I think the overlap between what Declan Doyle does and what Ben Johnson has, I think it's going to be pretty large.
Yeah,
I don't know what percentage.
Yeah.
And I think he's got to look at the film of Keaton Mitchell and say, this is a guy that I could use, with some different look. Kenneth Walker even Chris Collinsworth in the Super Bowl talked about it. He said Kenneth Walker's not a good receiver. I kind of wish he didn't say that, because I've watched the Seahawks a lot this year, and you mentioned option routes, angle routes, we used to call them zig routes, whatever. Kenneth Walker got a whole lot of usage there the latter half of the season, and his reputation was not as a good receiver. So there's no reason why Keaton Mitchell or any NFL player, through consistent practice and exposure and opportunity, can't take advantage of it, especially one as talented as him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's funny. I ran it. So Anthony and I played together, his dad, and when we had our 25th year anniversary, it was for the home Steelers game this year. I went to practice that day, like all the 2,000 guys did, and I actually made it a point. I talked to two kids that day. I talked to Freddie Buchanan, who I think is outstanding. He's grew up in Northern California, around near where I grew up.
Oh, that's right. He's a Cal guy. Yeah.
Yep. And I talked to Keaton Mitchell, and I said, Keaton, I go, you could be like Jahmyr Gibbs, he's a comp for you. You at your best, you can do all that stuff. And he's like, I definitely think I can. It's just a matter of opportunity. And the thing is, the way he looked at me, he's like, he knew he just wants to be put in a position to make those plays. But let's be honest, though. I'm trying to remember what game it was, but it was a pretty key play. Was it the Steelers game? And I think did Keaton drop what would have been a third down conversion, or did it hit off his? Yeah. Oh no, it was an interception. It was interceptions.
Right.
Like, that was a huge play. Yep, exactly. That was off Keaton's hands. Now, was it perfect? No, but you're in the NFL, son. None of this stuff's perfect. Like, you got to catch that ball and you got to go do something with it. You know what I mean? And I can see how Lamar was under pressure and he put a little bit of zip on it, and Keaton does have his hands up, and that all leads to disastrous stuff. You know what I mean? But that being said, we know what he can do when he gets the ball in his hands. So he needs to be that weapon on third down in space, on a safety, on a linebacker. I don't give a damn if it's a DB. You know where you're going. You know what you're doing. He's basically got all the athleticism of a DB. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I just didn't want to not have a conversation about that, because I think that, for me, that evolution and development of Keaton Mitchell, it seems like a little bit under the surface because there's so many things that need to get taken care of. But in parallel, that is a massive opportunity for third down conversions on third and long and third and medium with Keaton.
I think we all, as Ravens fans, 23, we were so just blown away, with what he was doing. And then that injury was, I think I've still only watched that play one other time. Yeah. It was just it was so difficult to watch, and to see him come back and have an impact was great. I agree with you. I'd like to see him be integrated a little more intentionally, not just happenstance.
Yeah. He seemed like one of those classic Harbaugh guys that every single Ravens fan every single week would watch a game and go, why is he not on the field? And then we come to find out it's like, he's not pass protecting well enough, or, in some cases, like, he doesn't defend the run as well, or, for edge guys.
Right.
Just seemed like there was always an excuse. Like, he's a talented player and he's fast as hell. He's a difference maker. You got to get him on the field.
Let's coach him up and figure out a way to, agreed. I think that's one of the things mentors talked about, is that, well, Femi, you would know, you were there, accentuating the strengths and minimizing exposure to weaknesses or something. I mean, do you remember that comment? I think you made it that day, right?
Yeah. The point he was just trying to make was like, we're going to play to the strengths of our guys. Like, we build the systems around the guys' talents. Like, that's what we're supposed to do. So that was what you're saying. That's basically what he conveyed that day.
Jake, I know you've probably been waiting to talk about the draft. We do intend here to do a little bit of a mock draft, right?
Yep. I got it ready whenever you are.
But before we do that, we can, I don't mind throwing it up there. Maybe people are tired of looking at Minter's face or whatever, but do you have anybody that you overrate compared to others? I have one, and that's not someone that we're looking at 14 or even 45, but it's DN for Ohio State, and it's Caden Curry. He's someone that I overrate compared to others. In fact, one of my good friends, a guy that I coached, who played college football, I think he does athletic training now, he's an Ohio State fan. And his opinion of Caden Curry was like, he was like, whoa, coach, you really do watch Ohio State film. I was like, yeah, when I get into a player, I go look for other games. I want to disprove my own initial thoughts. So he's a guy that I overrate. Do either of you guys have any in this draft? First, second, or third, doesn't matter.
Yeah, I've got a few. I was super high on David Bailey over the summer when I was first.
No, you actually. I remember it in the Discord. Yeah.
Of course, now that hype has caught up to him, and he's gonna go top 10. A few other guys I really like. Local ties here. Mansour Delane from LSU. Archbishop Spalding kid. I thought his tape was really, really strong. He kind of fell off towards the end of the year, but you got to put everything into perspective too. He's super strong in coverage, good ball skills. He can play man or zone. He's got good instincts, good awareness.
You mean the coaching? You mean the coaching there, them firing their coach, Brian?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That definitely hurts things. But Ravens fans might not like to hear this, but the corner is very, very much an option at 14, and I would not be opposed to it, because some of these top two guys, Delane and the Tennessee kid McCoy, they're damn good players, and I think that would fill a much needed need, if that makes sense, at the other outside corner opposite of Wiggins. couple other guys. If Caleb,
I don't
Banks,
think you have Delane overrated. I don't think you have him overrated.
Yeah, definitely not. He's right now. I have him at 11, but that's kind of consensus of where everybody else has him too. Caleb Banks, I have at 13, the 6'6", 330 D lineman from Florida. Yep. The biggest concern with him is the injury history, specifically the foot injury. Because guys that big with feet injuries, that it's not a good combination. But when you watch his tape, he flashes big time, and he's a potential game wrecker in the middle of that D line, and would be a nice add if Matabike is not able to come back. I love Cardinal Tate. I think he's a vertical threat. Can
of course
play above the rim. He's special. I don't know. Would you guys go receiver first round if there's a?
I would. I can't do that personally. There's too many. We need bricks, and we're trying to buy Ferraris. You know what I mean? We can't. We got to start internally and build out. I know there's this gut kind of it's not even a gut thing. It's more like we want flashy toys, right? And I feel like for me, receiver would be that. Now, if someone said this guy is going to be a game changer, he's going to be Zay plus, then maybe. But I would have a hard time going receiver personally. I don't know about you, Coach, but receiver would be difficult for me.
Along the same lines, this really reminds me of 2022. Now, we didn't know it, a month before the 22 draft, but it's very difficult for me to look at the progression of things. And at this point, I've done 20 just simulations. I'm not even picking anything, just a simulation. Okay, where are these receivers going? Where do receivers normally go? I understand that people say the receiver talent in this one isn't as overwhelming as other drafts. It's just difficult for me to think that we're not going to see either a bunching of receivers selected or, the phrase is a run on receivers.
Right.
And I think we're in a perfect spot. I think it's a positive and a negative. I think we're in a perfect spot at 14 for a receiver to get taken at, 11. The Bengals are 10, right? So hopefully they do take one, but who knows? A receiver to get taken at, let's say, 8 and 11, and then the rest of these NFL front offices say, oh crap, if I want such and such, I've got to get there. And I just feel like you can see that happening again. And who knows? It might be us at 14 where someone says, I want this guy. I don't think Carnell Tate's there at 14. Jordan Tyson, Mekhi Lemon. I just feel like we're looking at 2022 all over again, and someone's going to be there at 14 that will give us a huge upgrade in talent, number one, or number two, the opportunity to trade back 5, 6, 7, 8 picks, but take some. I think I look at this as more of an opportunity.
Mm-hmm. Let me throw a crazy thought at you. Remember when we drafted Kyle Hamilton and no one thought he'd be there at 14 and we got him? Remember that?
Yep.
There's a guy out of Notre Dame. He plays on the offensive side of the ball. His last name is Love. If he falls to 14, this dude is special, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I feel like he's a guy that you have Derek, you have him, and you have Keaton, with the idea that Derek has another, 1 or 2 left? You know what I mean? Let's say Derek has 2 left.
Be great.
This kid
if
Love,
he has 2 left. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right? But what I'm saying is, though, is this kid Love, it reminds me of the offensive scenario version where you don't think Kyle Hamilton's going to be there at 14 and he's there and you got to take him. I could see Love falling to 14. Now, is he going to get past Kansas City and New Orleans? I don't know. But it's scary to think about him in New Orleans with Pat Mahomes. I'm sorry, him in Kansas City with Pat Mahomes. Very scary thought, because this kid is explosive, and I think he's the tape that I've seen and the way that I've seen him play. I think he improves a team instantaneously, especially if they've got a decent offensive line. So just something I wanted you guys to think about, because that's a kid that if I see at 14, knowing how important the running back position is, especially in this offense. That'd be tough. But I know it would feel like me just giving you a lecture about not drafting Ferraris, and then I go and I draft a running back. You know what I mean? But remember when the Lions drafted Jahmyr Gibbs? Everybody's like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah.
Well, why did they do that? Like everybody's hands were up in the air. The rest of the league was like, "Thank you, good job, guys." Like he's going to be there at the end of the first round, maybe in the second round, and look what he's done. He's one of the best backs in the league. So anyway, I don't know what your guys' thoughts are on him, but I'm a big fan.
I think they parlayed that into another second round pick, if I recall. You know, that for them, for Lions fans, that was a historic draft. You know,
That's
Jahmyr
right.
Gibbs, Jack Campbell.
That was all part of the whole trade stuff, right? Yeah.
Brian Branch, Sam Laporta, all of those guys taken in the first 2 rounds. But yeah, no, I like both of those running backs at Notre Dame. The backup, I don't even think you can call him a backup. I think at every other university in the country, except for like
he's a starter.
3, he's the starter.
Yeah.
I feel like it's a blessing to be in the spot where we are at 14 and have options.
Yeah, Jadarian Price, the backup. I'm seeing a lot more. I think Dane Brugler just came out with his top 100 and had him as running back 2 behind Love. Which
really
goes to show. Yeah, you know he's awesome, and also you don't have to necessarily worry about like the wear and tear factor. You know, he doesn't come into the league with a billion carries already. However, as for Love, it would be similar to that, what you were just talking about with the wide receivers, because at 14, in an ideal world, you need somebody that's going to be an impact guy who's going to come in, play all the time. Love might play 20 snaps, 25, because Derrick Henry's still number 1.
Yeah, for sure.
That would definitely be more of a luxury over a necessity type thing. But it is scary to think about, like having that succession plan in place and those two, saving the tires for the end of the year.
I don't think Jake, you mentioning Delane or Femi, you mentioning Love. I don't think either one of those guys are. I don't think you're overstating how good they are, because Delane is smooth and fast and explosive at the same time as a corner. I've watched 3 games of LSU, and I actually like like 3 of their guys on defense a lot. And I look at them as like 3rd, 4th, 5th round guys for us. That's when I do the college film for the draft, I just watch a game and I'll watch multiple players, not just one, you know what I mean? And, but as far as Love goes, him and Price are just, it's shocking that they have 2 players of that caliber in the same backfield at Notre Dame,
Yeah. You were mentioning, you just throw a game on and you watch it and see who pops. One guy that to me last year did that, who's now in this draft class, is Cassius Howell. What they had Shamar Stewart, the other Stewart on the D line, and another guy on the edge. So Howell was like their 3rd outside linebacker, edge type guy. But every 24. Time he was on the field, you were watching one guy on one side and then all of a sudden going, oh, look at this 15 on the other side. Like the big issue with him is going to be the arm length. I think I've heard he's going to have like 30 and a quarter, 30 and a half inch arms, which, some people, it's a big thing. I agree with that. You need a little bit of length. But he's explosive. He's productive. He gets to the quarterback. He's physical. You watch bring it back to the play like a Raven aspect. I love watching tape. Devin Witherspoon is an exact perfect example of this. When you put on his tape and he's coming up and meeting the running back and knocking him right on his ass, like that is like in my definition of a guy that I want, playing like a Raven. Cassius Howell does the same thing.
You saw it on film from college for Witherspoon, and you can see it with I like the full length film. I like watching the full length film of stuff and then cutting it and then putting it in a Google Drive for other people to access, because I know other people like to sleep. I don't. I like to watch football. Jake? Do you want to fire up the mock? Which one are you going to use?
So I'm using the PFF mock draft simulator. Pull it up real quick for you.
And then I think what we'd like to do is just go through maybe 3 rounds, but we're only going to do the Ravens, right? See what's there. And look, this is fun for me, and it fits with my Sunday evening schedule. It's kind of what I do is football work on Sunday afternoons and evenings. So we're just going to pick for the Ravens.
Did I do 3 rounds?
Right.
Yeah, just the Ravens, and it goes fast in between picks too, so it won't be
Well, while you're
A lot of
you know,
time
while
on
you're
that.
setting this, I haven't done one myself this year, to be honest with you. Last year, I made myself wait until the combine because by combine time, I had like probably 40 players, like with a significant number of film broken down. I'm way behind this year. I'm only at about 16 or 18 guys that I've got. I feel like I need at least, 3 to 4 possessions of a player on defense to watch their stance. You get the end zone angle too. Look at their eyes, or where I think they perceive them to be looking, and then their reactions before I can really say, okay, I'm starting to get an idea of the quality of this player. But usually for me, I got to get through 2 or 3 games, and so my approach is very arduous, cumbersome.
Yeah, I agree. This year was brutal too because I think I was up to like 60 players, and then 20, 25 of them ended up going back to school. Thank you, Oregon Ducks, for bringing back their entire freaking roster.
But you started to grab film, during the. Did you start to grab film around week 7 or week 8 when I lost hope in the Ravens?
Yeah, that's when I started to really pick it up. Yeah,
right,
that was the key, or the time when I started really diving into it. But anyways, so here we are at 14.
We've re-signed Linderbaum.
Yep.
We've restructured Lamar, and Madubuike is I'll just throw this full screen so people can see it a little better. And Madubuike is good to go, right?
That's what we're going, assuming.
I know I'll say go to O-line.
Yeah.
But,
so we've got Spencer Fano at tackle. Let me preface this by saying I think the top tackles you're seeing right now, whether it's Maui Goa, Fano, I'm not a big fan of Proctor at all, but I think those guys are going to be capable tackles in the NFL, would definitely benefit from a bump inside to guard. I think they'd be kick-ass guards if they moved inside, but which, for us, that's what we're looking for. So if we wanted to go that avenue, I think that would work.
Yep.
So we've got Fano, Proctor, Lomu's more athletic. I think he sticks at tackle. Freeling's rising up a lot of boards too. I think he's going to be really solid.
That's the Georgia guy, right?
Yep. And then
for a second,
my these are my 3 favorite right here out of the tackles: Freeling, Iheanacho, and Miller.
The thing I liked about the Miami guy was I felt like, and this is possibly an oversimplification. I felt like he was guard ready right now, with the option or idea that, let's say, one of our tackles was to get hurt. I felt like he'd be the next best option. Now, maybe that's too optimistic about it, but what do you guys think of that? I'm talking about Moanga. Is that how you say it?
Yep. Oh, I think we talked about it last year at the end of the first round with Donovan Jackson, because he put on he had a really strong senior year at Ohio State. And Minnesota, right? They drafted him in the late 20s, but guy who put up great film at left tackle at Ohio State, but was primarily a guard early in his career. And I think he's now playing guard for Minnesota. Yeah, it swung out when Darius Hall got hurt, but
absolutely. Jackson had a nice year for them.
Yeah, but having that positional versatility, if and when, because Stanley's getting older, he goes down and has one of those like 3-game absences with the ankle. You need somebody to plug in at left tackle for a couple games,
I really like Jordan Tyson, the receiver, but what do you guys think? Let's draft one.
I mean, are we going to draft? Are we going offensive line? Do we have consensus on that? Or are we looking at what?
I would go Fano, move him into guard.
And he's similar.
What was that? Sorry.
Go ahead, Coach. Yeah.
He's similar to the Miami kid in that his film looks good at tackle. But I like the movement skills, especially the guy from Miami, 61, right? The right tackle. He pulls really well. I think we're probably going to be in more of a zone or an outside zone system. That's what I hope for. But I think both of those guys look good on the move when they're pulling, and they also look good in a zone system.
Yeah, get into the second level too. He looks very fluid.
Are we locked on? Are we locked on drafting a tackle and kicking him down? Because I've been looking at guards like is it Vega Ione from Penn State, Pregnon and Besantis. I really like Vega a lot. I think, man, I feel like he's a plug and play starter like day one at guard. The kid from Penn State. Are you thinking he's going to be there or gone? Or are you not as high on him? I really liked his tape.
I'm not as high on Ioane as a lot of people are. I still think he's going to go first round. And like you said, he's a guy that you can start from day one. It's kind of with Tyler Booker last year, comparing it to him. If you're drafting a guard, I want to see like that nasty, kick-ass stuff, knocking guys off the ball, quick explosiveness off the snap. Like, I don't think that's necessarily him. But is he an upgrade? And would he start right away for the Ravens? Absolutely. I really like Pregnon too. So those are two options, but I would prefer to take them if it's a trade down situation, not at 14.
Yeah, where do you think their value is for you? And like I said, full transparency, Jake. Like I really just haven't looked like out externally at the draft yet. I mean, there's a couple of the big name, like top 100 guys that I look at that covers all positions. So I'm not going to be able to I know that this is your kind of your sweet spot, and I know that you love the draft and all the players that you've been looking at. So you have a lot more information. I would trust your opinion at this point. I just haven't looked at these other kids yet. I'm just kind of going on reputation a little bit. But if you think that there's value at 14 with a kid that obviously I haven't studied or mentioned yet, I'll definitely take the time after we get done to go back and take a bigger peek of. And if you could actually, why don't you send me a couple guys offensively that are tackles that you think are plug and play guards? I'd love to kind of study it from that view because I haven't done that yet.
Cool. Yeah, absolutely. Cool. It sounds good.
Pretty cool for me to see a Vanderbilt kid up there. Stowers, my family member's son, super close with them. He backed up Stowers this year at Vandy and just had nothing but great things to say about Stowers and the whole staff down there. He just was, very professional in his descriptions of what they do, but he was very complimentary of Stowers being a guy that shows up for practice every day, even if hurt, and just gives everything. So it seems like they got, but I don't know if he'll be there. Good God, they got him at what do they have his rank at? 45?
45. Yep.
Wow. That's good. I mean, that's amazing. He's going to make a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. You watched Zion Young yesterday, right?
Yeah, I wasn't, for me at 45, I thought, unless we were able to, from a Ravens standpoint, organically create another pick in the top, let's say top 55. I wasn't willing to go there with him, but I know other people have a higher opinion, of him than I do. I didn't, there's some things I just didn't, prefer.
Zion Young is the length, size, the speed flashes. I wasn't as high on him like you as others, but if you're looking for somebody with the ideal size and speed and traits, he's a guy that you should consider here. Colton Hood I think he had a rough Senior Bowl if I remember correctly, but I thought his tape was really, really solid. Is
he the corner that kicks down and plays nickel some or no?
I believe not often now.
Maybe I've got a different guy I'm thinking of.
Yeah. But I would definitely consider him here at 45 with the need at corner. Keontae Scott, primarily a nickel, but he's a guy that we were actually looking at him at Maryland for a little bit. My coworker Jeremy found him at I think he was at Snow College, one of those JUCOs. Just a really, really solid player, productive. Had the pick 6 in the Ohio State game, I believe. Correct?
Yeah, I applaud you for having this type of memory. I do too, but it's usually faces and names of people I've competed against or whatever. I did really like. There's the tackle for Arizona State that I thought might be a second round guy, but we've already gone to offensive line. I guess the other way to do it would be not go O-line first, right? And then see what's there at 45. Kind of like what we did with Rosengarten and Wiggins, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. And I think the way that this draft kind of played out too, a lot of those defensive players went before us. Peter Woods would be awesome to have. Sonny Styles is a beast. Even Howell and McCoy went right before us, so it kind of just forced our hand there at 14. But
hey, what's Peter Woods at? Because that's a guy that I had on my list for an interior D lineman.
Yeah, he is, I believe,
right around where we're going to be picking. He's going to be right around probably 10 to 14, wouldn't you say?
Okay, that's what I figured. Okay.
PFF has him 13. I think Dane Brugler actually just had him 36th on his top 100, which I thought was very interesting. But yeah, this is probably a sweet spot for tackles, guards. Pregnon going 38 there. Basantis is good, but I think at this point you got to probably address corner early because it's a pretty steep fall after this.
You don't like the group of corners as much as I do, I don't think.
Yeah, I think it's top heavy. You'll see a lot of them go here in round 2.
Oh yeah.
I really, really like Chris Johnson here, but he's similar to Wiggins, thin, moves really well, ball production.
Chris Johnson, that's my boy's son.
San Diego State guy too, right?
That's my boy's son. That's my one of the guys I played with in at CSU and on the Vikings.
Yeah, I would be totally fine taking him here at 45.
Yeah.
Well, no, you've talked about him. I think you may have posted a video. No, I don't think it was Chris Johnson. You posted a video of some corner that I hadn't watched any film of, and then I went and watched him. And I'm talking about Jake in the Discord. Mm-hmm. That's why I called you the draft guru initially, because you'll just suddenly it'll be a night where I'm not even looking for college film to show up for me, and then all of a sudden, like, I'll get 6 2-minute long player things pop up in my Discord, and I'm like, all right, this is great. This is fantastic.
Yeah.
I think the point is, like, the offensive line, what do you call it? Simulations that the Ravens do for their draft. They'll have to be pretty reliable for someone to be there at 45. We like.
Yeah, for sure.
For us to not go O-line at 14. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
No, I agree. Yeah.
And to feel really confident one of those guys will fall, because we all see how important offensive line is. So,
or a trade back from 14 to
definitely
23, 26, where we recoup another second. I would love to have 3 of the top, let's say 3 of the top 60, 65 picks. I think that'd be fantastic.
Definitely. Yeah. Getting an extra one in that top, even top 90 would be great. So third round here to wrap it all up. We did 3 rounds, right?
Yeah.
This is where you could see Ravens go receiver. I like Malachi Fields. He's another guy that contested catches are outstanding. Plays above the rim. Doesn't separate that well, but he does have some pretty outstanding speed numbers.
Absolutely.
In terms of miles per hour.
Extremely explosive. Man, the Brazil guy being that low. I know he's a Tennessee receiver. I get it. I understand. But he's not, he's not the same as the guy with the Giants. He's a 6'5", 205-pound kid that's got incredible speed. I really like him. He against Vanderbilt, like I said, I have a rooting interest at Vanderbilt now. Vanderbilt kicked their ass, but he made some plays in that game. He actually had a touchdown.
Yeah, definitely. Those are probably
what's outside linebacker look like? Top
2 options at this point. Denai Dennis Sutton's one that pops off. He's a Maryland guy, McDonough. Penn State. He's more of like your Tavius Robinson edge or run defender as opposed to pass rusher. I think he's a little stiff. Won't generate a lot of one-on-one pressures, but
I love the Big Ten, but I think we may be off Big Ten edge rushers.
I'm good. I'm good to pass on that too. Keelan Rutledge, I have to watch him again, but I think this is a guy that Cole Jackson really, really likes. He was tweeting about him a while ago, but
physical
that's
football team.
Yeah, for sure. That's another guy that could be in play in rounds 2 and 3 if we don't go line early.
Zakee Wheatley's another Maryland guy right there.
Yes, he is.
He's another Maryland guy. Stuck around for another year. His dad's, really cool too. It's a great family.
Yeah.
Where do you go to high school?
I think he's Spalding too.
Yeah, he's a private school kid. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Go to edge rusher. Filter for edge rusher.
Yep. Where is that? There we go. Haven't watched him a lot of Kieran Crawford. He's a new name for me.
I don't think Kamara's an edge rusher. I think Kamara probably plays a little bit more inside. Good player though.
Yep. One name that stands out to me, Jayshawn Barham, really, really athletic kid. He just started playing outside linebacker like full time this year.
This year, right.
Yeah,
He was opposite Moore this year.
Yeah,
Eric Moore.
I was actually on staff when he was visiting Maryland, and then committed to Maryland, played there freshman year. And from day one, I said this guy should be an outside linebacker. But,
like a lot of guys that go to Maryland for a year or two, and then
and then they leave. Yep, but he's an interesting option later, though. I wouldn't probably go here at 80. What else?
I feel like we're a little ahead of the game with some of those guys there.
Mm-hmm.
But I could be wrong. I mean, we're at 80, so in our minds, we'd like to go, man, this is a difficult group to select from, because I think these are good football players, but positional need, makes it difficult.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I think considering what we have at this moment with, offensive line addressed and corner addressed, this is kind of where you can sit and go best player. And I think Malachi Fields, one, gives you that big physical X presence on the outside. You could, jump ball guy, but also I think out of this group is probably the best player. If we needed D-line, Daryl Jackson, another Maryland guy who left, shocker. He's another option. But I'd feel comfortable going Fields here. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
Hey, all you guys. I'm along for the ride on this stuff.
Nah, I mean, for someone like you, it probably takes someone like you less views of a player than, other people, myself included, because I feel I don't trust myself sometimes. If I watch 12 or 14 plays, I'm like, okay, I think I see patterns developing, but I don't trust myself enough to put a period at the end of the sentence,
No, I hear you for sure.
As far as some of the guys Jake mentioned, and even that you talked about, Femi, what a lot of people don't realize is like PG County, Maryland, and Southern Maryland, the SMAC, insane amount of, talent as far as football goes. Baltimore and Baltimore City gets a bad rap sometimes as far as high school football. Yes, there are, a lot of middle of the pack high schools, and even, there's really a lot of bad football there. Don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of really good football players that go the private school route in Baltimore area.
Yep.
And that kind of has an impact, in my opinion, on those. How do I say this? The top 4 or 5 public schools in Baltimore City, a lot of those kids they're going to stay there. Some of the kids, if you're the best player on the 8th best team in the city, you probably are going somewhere else, in some cases. I've, from scouting that area a lot, I feel like it gets a little bit of a bad rap because the SMAC does have some private schools, and certainly PG County and DC does as well. I feel like the pull from the Baltimore City, public schools, sometimes there's a little bit more of a pull from some of those schools than I feel like the SMAC public schools and the PGs. And so I feel like it gets a little bit of a bad rap for football. They've had some really great football players from Baltimore City that have come out of there, for decades,
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, a lot of those guys are getting poached by the St. Francis's or the what do you got, like the Good Counsels of the world. So not as much, but go ahead.
I think too, like, some of our connections locally, it'll be interesting to see. I felt like in the last 2 or 3 years, there's a lot of guys with Maryland roots or who went to, University of Maryland that were in the range to be selected by us where our picks were. There was, some alignment and we just didn't seem to gather them all.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty interesting too.
That often.
Yep.
Well, I would like to do one next time with you guys that's more like I do a mock draft on my own. Maybe Femi, you do one on your own, and Jake, you do one on your own. And then we kind of come together in a forum like this and compare them.
Yeah, I'm 100% down.
Sounds good to me.
Strengths and weaknesses. But I'll be honest with you, even like a week from today or 2 weeks from today, I would still not feel like my own study prep is complete. And, I don't mind admitting that at all. It's just so much to go over.
Yeah, it's still early in the process.
So. Yeah, we're still in February. We're good. I mean, free agency is going to happen way before the draft does, right? So, maybe we should talk about that in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Talk about free agency,
Yeah.
if you
Well,
want.
man, yeah, absolutely. I'm far as off-season content, like it's fun to try to produce things, but it's also sometimes you feel like you're just throwing at a dartboard, but you're kind of like doing it with your eyes closed because you don't know what people, want to see or hear. People want to hear Ravens content stuff. I'm not willing to show the film on my channel for obvious reasons. But do you guys have any final thoughts about, where we are going into the combine? What, 8 days from now, 7 days from now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead, Jake. You got it.
Yeah, I just in terms of the combine, I know a lot of people they kind of rag on EDC for always mentioning the combine, and lots of people, obviously the scouting is important, but I think the biggest purpose of the combine to GMs is obviously interviewing the players, making sure they're a good fit for your team, but the behind the scenes stuff that goes on, whether that's at the bar after the combine, midnight, going out getting steak dinner across the street, where they talk to agents, they talk to other GMs, and this is where you see a lot of these guys sign right away when free agency opens. It's because they get the deals done at the combine. These trades they talk about because everybody's all in one room. So I think that's when we start seeing things really ramp up. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks and seeing what we hear and if anything develops. We'll see if Lamar makes his way up to Baltimore or to Indianapolis to get the deal done, because obviously that's going to be the biggest factor for this offseason. But yeah, just really excited to get this ball rolling and start building out this team.
Yeah, I think from my view, a lot of people that are nervous about the Lamar situation, I don't think need to be. The biggest overhang in the Lamar contract situation on the last go round was the fully guaranteed deal that Cleveland did. You know what I mean? With Deshaun Watson. And that was the biggest issue. And then as soon as Jalen Hurts signed, Lamar signed right after him. And it's like, well, the next guy to get guaranteed money. Okay, cool. Let's get this done. So I know a lot of people have PTSD over that. That's the first thing. The second thing I'll say is, and I don't think people realize this, because being a fan is to be irrational and to be emotional. And I totally get it, because I'm a fan, an analyst, and a former player all rolled in one. And each three of those personas check the other. So it keeps me pretty level-headed. Mm-hmm. And what I'll say is that if we want to pull the curtain back a little bit, or look telescopically with our telescope versus our microscope, the Ravens have the most drafted players active in the NFL right now, across the NFL. The Ravens, they've drafted the most active guys that are on rosters this year came from the Ravens draft. So EDC was doing something right. They're not all here, but the most active players in the NFL that were drafted, the team that leads the NFL with most active players in the NFL still is the Ravens. It's like 67 or 68. The other thing that the Ravens lead in a draft statistic is that the Ravens have the most players on their roster are draft picks. You see what I'm saying?
High percent are still there.
Yeah. They're the number one in the NFL in regard to those two benchmarks. So it doesn't mean we should feel better about the kind of the disorderly conduct that we observed during the season. That's been rectified by the coaching changes. So you should feel good about that. Absolutely. I still think EDC, I just don't think people realize that, half the guys that get drafted in the first round by a team do not get a second contract with that team. Like, we're so locked in our team and what our team does. We don't look across the NFL to the malpractice and the nonsense that happens in other organizations. We have one of the best organizations, in the league. And so I'm just saying it's a vote of confidence on the process. I'm not going to get too worked up in February. I really enjoy all the mock free agent signings, all the restructuring conversations, all the draft stuff. It's all fun now. So it's all up for discussion. I don't think any of us should get too rooted in anything. But from my perspective, being on the inside and now being on the outside of it, and I get to kind of dip my toes in and out, be optimistic. It's free. There's no reason not to be. And all this stuff is fun, and there's no wrong, as long as you're doing a little bit of studying. And as you guys can see, I didn't have a ton of input on the draft because I haven't gotten there yet. But just overall, I'm just really excited about the changes and what it's going to mean for us. And to see other teams around the league, like the Bears, the Patriots, Denver, basically most recently, all these teams improving with coaching changes, to me, optimism all around. So that's my parting 100%. Thought, Coach.
100%. I think, as far as like either how optimistic to be, number one, or what things look like in other parts of the league. I will tell you, I think you both may have some you do have, I'm sure, have some awareness of this. The moment I started to intentionally watch film of the Lions, I felt like my perspective, positive or negative, became more solidified. And what I mean is I felt more confident, especially talking about the offensive line. When I saw the offensive line in Detroit consistently be able to execute things, and then I saw our 2024 offensive line, which I don't even think that offensive line was good enough to win a championship, not even close, in my opinion. And it helped me have a little bit more awareness in some ways, but it also helped me have a little bit stronger opinions because I started to recognize, and it's kind of what you were saying, I think, except your experience and the reference you were making was personal experience, being there and seeing it and knowing people who've been in other organizations. I've seen a lot of bad football the last 2 or 3 years, not just Ravens opponents, but Lions opponents, Seahawks opponents, although the Seahawks played, I think, one of the top most difficult schedules in all of NFL. To your point, not front office related, I've seen a lot of bad NFL film in the last 2 or 3 years when I intentionally went out and watched other teams, Lions and then Seahawks. And so I agree, there's a lot to be optimistic about. There's a lot to be happy about as a Ravens fan historically. We've got, it seems to me right now, we've got the right amount of connections to that, but also new blood with the coaching staff. I really like the mix. We didn't even really talk about that. Maybe it's topic for another gathering. So
yeah, cool.
Yeah, lots to be excited about.
Well, if you, I appreciate you guys, coming on. We went on a little bit longer, but I said 1:15 was my goal, so we're a little bit past that. I really appreciate you guys' time, Femi and Jake, and anybody who listened in. If you guys have, any feedback, positive or negative, more than welcome to give it to me. Still using StreamYard to present this because it's the easiest, most streamlined way for me to get that accomplished. I appreciate you guys' time, man. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know in the comment section, first of all. And then finally, if you think other Ravens fans would enjoy, this look, which we called our vision board, maybe we need a better title. Please consider grabbing a link to this video and share it out on social media to help this content get more reach. Appreciate you guys' time.